Welcome to the Oddsbreakers, your number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 5 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev, follow us at The Oddsbreakers, and follow us on social media /The Oddsbreakers. This episode is being brought to you by jazzsports.ag. For a 100% sign-up bonus, please visit Jazz Sports and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms, conditions, and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with a cost, sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my premium plays before the line moves. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com to become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, what a weekend of football we had. Packers took care of business easily. We were on the Rams that game. Thought they would cover the 7. Didn't happen. But the Packers look very, very good. And I'm very excited to talk about that game today. Buffalo took care of business. Made the Ravens look human. Probably less than human, actually. They didn't score many points, did they? Buffalo stopped the run, stacked the box, made Lamar throw the ball, and the rest was history. As far as Sunday's games, as you know, the Mahomes injury was absolutely insane. Cleveland was in that game. The officials missed a horrible targeting call. I don't know if I'm going to say horrible because that happens a lot, but if you're not going to call it there, when the hell else are you going to call it? Because it stopped Cleveland, made him fumble through the end zone, and Cleveland lost the ball in that spot. It was absolutely despicable that, first of all, a fumble can be advanced by the offense. Why would you reward somebody to advance a fumble, right? Let's just say your other team member picks it up and gets 6 more yards or even runs for a touchdown. You're rewarding them for their incompetence of dropping the fumble. Number 2, you're punishing them way too hard for it to go through the end zone. You know, if you fumble at the 3 and it goes out at the 1, you get 2 yards. If it goes out the end zone, you lose the whole possession and all the work you did to get down there. It absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. So if you're going to call targeting on any plays, just be consistent. And the helmet to helmet was hard enough to jog Higgins' brain a little bit to drop that ball or whatever it was. You know, it was pretty significant, and not calling it there was just another atrocity for the NFL. But at the same time, Mahomes looks like he might come back this weekend. I do think he is, and a big matchup, obviously, against the Bills coming up. Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. I'll discuss that game a little bit as well. That game was, well, difficult because 4 turnovers to 0, right? I thought the Saints were the better team. The Jared Cook turnover completely changed that game. Completely. And, you know, the rest is history, right? Breeze kind of chokes in big spots. He's been doing that. I'm really glad that Breeze did win a Super Bowl because I'm a fan of Drew Brees, but he just kind of tends to mess up in those big playoff spots and others. You know, I guess he's going to retire, which sucks, but at the same time, you know, Drew Brees was a huge, huge person to the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans. You know, a huge role model is what I'm trying to say. So we'll see if he retires. I think he will. But now you have Tom Brady back in the conference championship game. I'm not going to say EFC championship because that's where he's been for 13 times. And now this is his 14th conference game. How insane is that conference title game? But he's playing the Packers and he's got a big one ahead. But we're going to get into that with a new guest today. And I am a fan of this man. I've listened to their podcast, The Deep Dive, many times. Mr. Andy Molitor is coming on to break down these playoff games. I'm very, very excited to get Andy on. He really does do deep dives when he gets into NFL football. Before Andy comes on, just want to announce that we're probably going to bring back the Better Odds sports betting with Kyle Hunter, not this weekend, but next weekend, the bye week before the Super Bowl, so we can take a dive ourselves into some basketball for the weekend, because there's not a lot of sports going on. People are going to be jonesing for some action, and hopefully we can find some winners. Kyle and I have found a lot of nice dogs to bet on that have cashed and made a lot of people money throughout the football season, so we're hoping to continue that in basketball.
Thank you for your sympathy, talking square of linoleum.
Without further ado, let's bring on our guest from the Deep Dive, Mr. Andy Molitor. Now, I'm very pleased to welcome a man that I've listened to for a very long time. You've known him as the co-host of the Deep Dive podcast, Mr. Andy Molitor from BetSperts.com and the Deep Dive podcast. You can follow Andy at AndyMSFW. Andy, how's your 2021 been treating you so far?
Pretty good, I think. It's been a fun NFL playoffs. We had a couple good college games to start the year. Mm-hmm. College basketball is fully rolling. I've been worried. This is the same thing I've been saying in any podcast I've ever done since last summer. So, I've been worried that this season or that season might get canceled or truncated or God knows what. And college basketball is still rolling. I mean, here we are in middle of January. It's there's still some cancellations. There's some teams sitting out, but it is still going. NBA. Actually, I'm more worried about the NBA right now than anything. But
I know. Once they got their bubble, it's like all of a sudden everybody's getting it. It was kind of crazy. I get what you're saying. I feel like it's affecting the NBA more or something.
Yeah.
But, there's just so many colleges out there, 357 of them. And, they're going to have some games. But, the most important thing, everyone gets out of this thing healthy. That's what we're going for. And hopefully this thing will end by summer. Of course, I said that last spring, and look what the hell happened. So we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't mutate into some crazy monster disease that it's going to shut down the world again. So that would suck. Anyways, man, look at this. We have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes in the conference championship games. What a shock, right? Those three quarterbacks, huge surprise.
Yeah, not only that, but the good coaches, good quarterbacks. It's kind of becoming easier to figure out what really, really matters when you're doing team construction in the NFL. Obviously, still a team sport, but it's hard. It's so hard to get this far into the playoffs without a good quarterback. And maybe jury's out on LaFleur still because he hasn't been around long enough, but some pretty decent head coaches as well. So surprise, surprise, the teams that aren't able to hire well and can't get a quarterback to play well are sitting at home or golfing right now.
Yeah, for sure. LaFleur, though, I will tell you, he's got his background when he was behind Kyle Shanahan for a while as quarterback coach and behind McVay, of course. That in itself, man, that guy, I think he was a home run hire. So maybe in the future we'll be talking more about how he is one of the greater coaches. Obviously, like you said, too early to tell, but the way this guy's been scheming for these games has just been absolutely fantastic. So I'm impressed.
Oh, for sure.
I'm definitely impressed by LaFleur. Three Hall of Fame quarterbacks here and one questionable. The way that he's playing, Josh Allen's playing this year is pretty dang good. And I'm shocked. I was down on him when he was drafted from Wyoming, and he proved me wrong. Yeah, I was completely wrong on him, and the kid's just got heart. I hear stories about how he tried to get into colleges. He sent 1,000 letters. I'm sure a lot of them to the same college, but only one would take him, one or two of them. And Wyoming was one of them. And the kid's just been on an uphill battle and deserves every single bit of respect that he has earned this year. So real happy for that guy. But for anyone who hasn't listened to the Deep Dive podcast, can you give our listeners a brief description of it and how it benefits your listeners.
Well, I guess it's different times of year because it's like we have two seasons. We have football season, and then we have let's just talk about whatever else we want to for the rest of the year. So twice a week podcast. We've been doing more live streams now. A lot of the podcast, in fact, almost every podcast now is just live streamed on YouTube as well. We started to do a little of that, and then people said, well, why don't you do all of them? I like watching it on YouTube, whether it's live or later. So we have been doing that, but twice a week. Usually on Sunday nights, we're breaking down kind of a quick recap of all the action we saw and then going into the early lines for the next week. Those have been pushed off to Mondays now because of just how late the Sunday games were and the fact that they're standalones and you're not getting 14, 15 games out of the way already before Sunday night openers. But then our big Wednesday, that is truly the deep dive into the week. I was just talking to you off air about how long our last week Wednesday's pod got. It was like an hour and 45 minutes, and we only really talked about 4 games. We tried to, get deep into the handicap on some of these and really look at all the angles. And, this time of year, we're bringing on some guests. We had Eric Eager from PFF last week. We have a pretty decent guest lined up this week as well, tomorrow on Wednesday, to talk about we'll see. We'll see how long this one goes because it is only 2 games, but hopefully we can get deep into that. There's plenty to talk about, obviously, especially in the AFC game, and maybe even a little look ahead and into some of the props. And there's been just great offerings on props throughout the whole playoffs, whether it's game by game stuff or which receiver will have the most yardage out of every receiver for the weekend. I've had a lot of fun with those markets too. So, deep dive twice a week, NFL season. And then once we get in the off season, we'll do evergreen topics. And we've done podcasts on closing line value. We did one completely on, the affiliate industry, the tout industry, just stuff people are interested in talking about and hearing, our opinions or getting deeper into it and looking into all sides of it, and as well as some interviews. We had some pretty good interviews last year, and hopefully we can continue that into this season as we're just kind of doing it by the seat of our pants in the off season. That is maybe I love the NFL, but man, the off season's a lot of fun because we can do whatever we want. Just, hey, let's talk to this person because that'll be interesting, or let's do this topic. Hey, it's the Masters. Do we want to do a golf one this week? Because we can, and we'll bring on somebody to talk golf. So I do enjoy the off season. We're only a couple weeks away from that.
Oh, we are getting too close to it. Absolutely. So golf, it sounds like you bet a little bit. What other sports do you like to handicap?
Yeah, golf is something I picked up a couple years ago. Normally I was just betting the majors because everybody wanted to have some action. It's the Masters. You're going to sit down and watch the Masters. You're going to watch the U.S. Open. But, I found a few different data sites, was able to scrape some data, and I did some golf betting. I've continued that. I've been taking it easy because I had such a tough entry into the market last January. I've been easing my way in, so I'll probably get more involved, as we mentioned, once the NFL season's over here in 3 weeks. I'll probably get a lot deeper into golf. I bet a lot of college basketball. That's a daily thing for me as the season goes. Mostly mid-major and lower stuff. I get into some of the smaller markets on that, but that's something I've been doing for a few years now. I tend to stay away from I don't want to say I stay away from other markets. I'll listen to smarter people than myself. I'll bet NBA, even though I don't really handicap it. I'll bet baseball, hockey, if somebody can talk me into something. But for the most part, I just hate half-assing it. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, if I can't sit down and actually put together good numbers for a sport, I hate to just take guesses and throw darts. So a lot of those sports I will just stay away from. So, yeah, football for the most part, but golf, tennis, and college basketball, I think, are my big ones outside of, standalone events. I always love markets like that, the Olympics, the hot dog contest, the draft. They're not having people at the combine, but, man, you can bet on the combine, the draft, things like that. You can usually find some soft edges in.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. No, I agree 100% with you, especially if you're going to talk about it. You put your heart and soul into it. You got to go 100%. Otherwise, it's not good enough because the market's going to beat you, no matter what. You have to be sharper than the market, and you have to put more time into it, and you have to find those little edges in every single thing you do. And if you can't go 100%, then don't bother. And that's why I talk about people specializing in conferences or mid-majors and things like what you said is going to give you a much better advantage, because if you're going to try to do it all, there's a good chance that the market's going to beat you in all of them unless you focus. Let's move on to a little breakdown of what played out last weekend, my man. What are your thoughts on how the Rams and the Packers played out? You know, that game wasn't that close, was it?
No, and I think a lot of, the injury speculation that we had in that, I don't know if I'm reading the wrong stuff or just everybody was dead wrong on that, because the way those injuries trended for Los Angeles, it just didn't feel like anybody had a grip on it once we actually got to game time. Or, the Cooper Kupp stuff was, it's just a knee injury or a knee bruise. Like, he just banged his knee up. He's fine. Then he doesn't play. And then immediately everyone's just like, Aaron Donald's fine. He's tough. He's a gamer. He said he's playing right away. He'll be okay. He was a non-factor. He didn't look himself. He didn't look like he was ready to go. And then everyone harped about we just talked about it, the most important position. Jared Goff, it's only been this long since he's had surgery. We don't know what that thumb's going to look like. Even though they got their pants kicked, he was good. Like he was fine as far as a thumb injury goes. Like, it didn't look like it was affecting those throws. So I did have a Packers teaser leg, a couple of them in that one. I'm glad they got it done, but I guess I was a little spooked when Goff looked as good as he did. I was like, oh man. He doesn't look like a guy's carrying a thumb injury at all. He's gripping the ball just fine. It wasn't as cold as we thought it was going to be. So some of the cold angle everybody had been harping on as well wasn't really fleshing itself out. So I thought Green Bay played well. That's what they've done, especially the past, second half of the season here, when Rodgers overtook everyone else for the MVP award. Has looked great. They did what they needed to do. You can talk about it being the best defense in the league. I think a high-end offense can always out-scheme a really good defense, just with today's rule changes and how much the league is centered around offense anyway. And, as we talked about LaFleur, he might be a good coach. This was a team that overperformed last year. They, if you do the Pythagorean expectation on their wins last year, they overperformed. They shouldn't have won as many games as they did. And they exited the playoffs to the 49ers. So people were kind of expecting maybe a step back. Maybe LaFleur isn't good. And they come out and play just as well, win the division, get the 1 seed, have the bye, and they looked good. So it might be a case where he's good. It's hard, he said it's early in the career, and sometimes it is hard to judge a coach when they have a Hall of Fame quarterback. But at the same time, we've seen plenty of Hall of Fame quarterbacks get careers wasted by bad coaching. I'm thinking of, Seattle exiting early. It's not like they didn't get their Super Bowl, but every year I see what Seattle puts out there with Russell Wilson. I think he could have more titles. So I might be there with you on the LaFleur train.
Well, there you go. I guess we'll see. And I think that was the biggest Pythagorean difference was the Packers last year. I think they normalized it to barely over 500 with the amount of points scored, points against. It was really crazy. And, I think a lot of people bet the Packers under because of it and got smashed. But it's because of LaFleur. And I agree, man. I think just when I saw Devontae Adams, went into motion, kind of took Ramsey with him, right? And then Ramsey's got up to the line. Well, the linebackers are in the way, the defensive line in the way. Then he darts back the other way. I think it was that first touchdown, first or second, just darts back full speed. And Ramsey's trying to run around the whole linebackers in the back just to get to him. He's yelling at his team, get out, get out. They never shifted out, and easy touchdown for Adams, man. So
he was very upset there. And again, kudos to the coaching staff, the entire coaching staff, and what they schemed there, because even if Donald was less than 100%, I thought they did a good job containing him, running away from him, scheming away from him, and then also managing just how good Ramsey is. So I think a lot of it is you can out scheme a really good defense if you're smart enough and you have the pieces.
Yep, exactly, 100%. What are your thoughts on how the Buccaneers and Saints played out?
That game was kind of ugly, wasn't it? And it it was tied in the second half, but it just felt like the Saints really pissed away an opportunity, because that's another one too. And I look at some of the other box scores. That was one where, it's stark, like the turnover battle. And yeah, it was Breeze had some pressure in his face in the first one. It was a bad idea to throw that ball. It was a bad pick. And another one wasn't his fault. The last one was, it bounced off a receiver who was in tight coverage, but at the same time, if you're going to lose the turnover battle that badly, it's awful hard to win against a team. I came away impressed with Tampa, but not super, impressed. They scored, but it was always on short fields, and it kind of comes down to, the whole chicken and egg thing. Going back to Green Bay, people are down on Green Bay because they didn't play anybody. Like their schedule is easy. They didn't play very many tough defenses. It's like, well, good teams beat bad teams. Good teams beat the tar out of bad teams. You can only play who's in front of you. And as far as Tampa goes too, how are you going to posit that as a negative that they had these short fields? Good teams take short fields and they punch them in for touchdowns and beat other good teams. So that's what they did. I thought Brady looked good. He looked comfortable. The MRI on Antonio Brown came back pretty with. I always say this weird. It came back positive. Positive news, not positive MRI.
like COVID positive MRI. We're so used to saying it.
Yeah, you gotta phrase your sentences right when you're talking about things like that. But the results were positive for the team. It looks like it's not a serious injury. He's day to day. So just a plethora of good receivers there, and Brady looking good. It'll be a lot of fun watching him back. Back in a cold weather game. There's a chance of snow in Green Bay. I'm very excited for both these matchups this Sunday. I think we got the best of it. And, as far as the Saints, like, I thought they were the better team. You're not going to win a game where you turn the ball over that often. But at the same time, I guess I would have rather seen this matchup. I talked about that with Drew. We both kind of agreed right away. Like, yeah, I'd rather see the Bucs, but they might not win just because they are getting pieced up a little on defense at times. So I'm excited for this matchup. And it's funny because we talked about how many bets we made in the playoffs last year and how few we are this year. The numbers are just tight again. It's not like last year where we're seeing angles instantly. The numbers are very tight. They're close to my power numbers, and a lot of it's going to come down to maybe finding some unique angles if you want to make some bets this weekend.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I wrote down the Saints were the better team in my opinion here, and write my notes. And the 4-0 turnover ratio killed them. That first turnover I thought was a little bit of PI that wasn't called. He kind of held on to Evans, which made him able to turn around. Otherwise, that ball would have never been intercepted if he wasn't holding him. And just misses like that. But then you can't come back and then throw two more picks. And obviously the Cook one wasn't Breeze's fault. And Cook.
No, that was backbreaking. Just the timing of it, where the game was. That was you never know how a game's going to turn out. Mm-hmm. Just you can't all put it on one play, but it did feel like the crux of the game, like it just shifted, and it might be over from here.
Yeah, and Breeze, the big spots, he just tends to choke a little bit on those big spots. I'm really glad. I like Breeze. He's great for the city of New Orleans and a great role model. But it happened last year too. And but I'm really glad he got his one Super Bowl win at least. So good for him for that. But you're right. Who doesn't want to see Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers here? Me as a Bears fan, I have a lot of friends that are Packer fans. I went to school in Madison, so I know a lot about that, and they think that Brady's not the GOAT, and they think Rodgers is better, and that's just going to make it more exciting for me to watch this game because, we'll break down this game, and I might be agreeing a little bit with some of my friends, but we'll take a look at this one here. Let's get right into it then. Tampa Bay is about a 4-point dog. And it's moving around a little bit. I don't know what your numbers show. 51, 50 and a half-ish is that total here. I'm going to let you go first on your thoughts on this.
Yeah, and this was one where my number makes it closer to 3. Mm-hmm. But, and in that case, it would say, well, you would want to bet Tampa, Andy, right? I really don't think I can. While at this, all the things I've said, all the nice things everyone said about this receiving core and what they do and how good Tom Brady looked, if they're going to roll out a game plan where they're featuring a lot of Leonard Fournette again, it might be semi-effective against this Green Bay defense, and we've seen that time and time again. Green Bay has had a little trouble stopping the run, but if that's what you want to do, those feel like wasted plays when you could be throwing the ball. It'll be interesting to go back and look at some of the what the expected points added are for some of the runs, especially after this game once we actually have the results. But I don't know that you're going to have the same opportunities as you had against the Saints. I just don't think that Rodgers at home is going to throw 3 picks. I don't think you're going to win the turnover battle 4-0. I think they're going to have to work a little harder on offense against a worser defense like this. I think the Saints defense is better than the Packers, but at the same time the offense is probably going to have to work a little harder to get those points. They're not just going to be gifted these short fields. So I'm probably staying away from this. I'm going to look at some angles on some props on this one, especially there's probably something to be looked at with some of the matchups. As much as it was ad nauseum and I was sick of hearing about Devontae Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. It was everybody brought that up, but there is something to be looked at as far as targets and how these defenses will match up with the offenses when you have so many receivers that are going to have over under props on receiving, on yardage, anytime touchdown scores. I think that's probably how I'm gonna, because as much as I preach responsible gambling, if it's an NFC, if it's a title game and I don't have an angle on the side or total, I'm going to bet some props. Like I need to have something small to cheer for if it's not, some DFS or something. So I'm probably going to dig in on that because you will have, I think, probably some actionable angles, especially on the Tampa Bay receiving side. So I think the number's fairly sharp. I'd lean a little towards Tampa. I wonder how this total is going to move based on some of the the weather concerns and what we're seeing. I know some people have hit this over once it popped down a little. So I would be excited to see points. If I'm just watching this game, I'm hoping it's an over game. I want to see some fireworks from these two, Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
For sure. And, I guess weather shows chance of snow, which could happen pretty much any day in Green Bay. and cold. Oh, yeah. Not too windy, but the under's been hit. It's been going down, and that's kind of what I like because I'm leaning over too. And these two teams played each other. This was the Bucs' only win against a 500 or better team, which is kind of surprising until last weekend. So I think your points are valid that the Saints were the better team, and we just lost the bet. Or I did. I was on the Saints -3, -2, and I hit it again at -2.5. So that was a loser for me last week. Barely held on to the under though. Really, oh
yeah, that was right tight to the number, wasn't it? And then the one last thing on the Bucs, this will be their 3rd straight road game. Yeah, 3 straight road games in the playoffs. So wow. I've had to travel to Washington, New Orleans, and now up to Green Bay, and then there will be fans. You have some fans, so kind of like I thought that was something important in the Baltimore game. It's amazing how a small contingent of fans can sound pretty damn loud.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
Maybe we're just not used to it.
Maybe, and it seems to echo through it. And I was like, are they pumping in crowd noise? What's going on there? So good point there. But the fans make a difference, and that's why I brought the home field for Green Bay to 3. I brought it back to 3, and I think they have the best home field in football. You can ask any Detroit Lions fan that question, and I think they would say that. But Aaron Rodgers, he's doing great. LaFleur, he's one of the perfect schemers in the first half, at least from what I've seen. I'm looking at this matchup, and there's just so much stuff to break down here because for something that Tampa did, and I watched that game when they did beat Green Bay, there's something that they matched up really well. And maybe it's just the plethora of targets, the plethora. Cameron Brate's doing great. He had I wish I did bet. I lost a prop on Gronk for number of catches. He was targeted 5 times, but couldn't get one catch. And Brate was targeted 5 times and got 4. But then you got guys like Tyler Johnson making amazing catches. You got guys like Scotty Miller making amazing catches, and that's where I'm a little bit nervous for Green Bay. They have a couple good corners there. But, how much can they cover there? And then it all kind of makes me wonder, is there going to be a good enough pass rush from Green Bay here? Well, straight numbers, DVOA has Tampa number 2, which I disagree with. I don't think Tampa Bay is the second best team. I think that's one. I do love DVOA, don't get me wrong, but I think their schedule is not as hard as people say. For Christ's sake, the Bears beat Atlanta and the Carolina Panthers too. Their division's not that hard in my opinion. And Brady in the playoffs is just a complete different animal. He's clutch. Look what he does. I have a couple of ways I look at games. Power ratings is one of them. My power ratings actually have Green Bay about a 5.75 point favorite because I'm giving them the full 3 based upon what I saw, the crowd, everything that goes with home field officiating, blah, blah, blah. But my algorithm has it less. It has it -2.5. And that's just taking efficiencies and using yards and putting it all together, And so their weakness, Green Bay, we all know it's against the run. They allow 4.6 yards per rush. But Tampa Bay only ranks 23rd in the league at rushing the ball at 4.1 yards per rush, 27th at 99 per game. So it's not like they've been doing that, but I did see more of it last week. And I will say that with Fournette, like you said, Andy, they did better last game, didn't they?
Yeah. And, you had me thinking about the first matchup. I thought a big part of that was the way they disrupted Rodgers. Like, they brought pressure. I think they were down 10-0 in that game and then just blew the doors off them from there. And it was, the pick 6 turned it around. But a lot of the success they had on defense was pressuring Rodgers, as much as we're just really kissing LaFleur's ass today, but he's not a dumb person. He has that tape. I'm sure they've done something to address that. And I think if you're able to keep Rodgers from getting pressure, whether it's, bringing in more one-back sets to chip or bringing an extra tight end here, just identifying their blitz packages better and checking to different plays. It's a very good offense. So that's kind of the matchup I'm looking for. And you're right about first half scripted plays, first half schemes. I've heard some people talk about maybe Green Bay first quarter, first half. I don't disagree with those angles at all.
Right. And actually that's one of them I'm going to get into as well here. Tampa's strength is obviously against the run. Kamara, he did have 85 yards rushing, though, last week, 4.7 per attempt, but that's just the Saints, I guess you can say. Green Bay runs the ball very well, too, 4.8 yards per rush. But one thing I just noticed was Vita Vea is coming back. Well, I don't know if he's coming back to play, but he's eligible to return from injury this week. That's really interesting because I was really concerned for Tampa when he went out a long time ago. It might have been that Bears game he went out. But he's a run clogger, too, and that's just going to add to the depth of that defensive line when they're getting tired against all the stuff LaFleur is going to throw at them, right? Tampa Bay's weakness is their pass D, 246 yards per game, while Green Bay can certainly throw the ball. Rodgers ranking I think 10th in yards per game at 259, second in yards per pass attempt at 7.8. That's what I look at too, because Green Bay's running the clock in the fourth quarter. So who cares what his passing yards are? His 10th, which is not bad, but when you're looking at yards per play, yards per attempt at 7.8, that's more important to me when I'm looking at a playoff game. And I think that Green Bay is definitely going to be having some passing yards, unlike what Breeze can do. Apparently, we found out through some tweets today from Ian Rappaport that Michael Thomas is a hell of a lot more injured than we thought he was.
Yeah, that was rough. We see those every year, though, after the playoffs, where it's like this guy was just kind of hiding some injuries, playing through it, whether with Jamal Adams and now Michael Thomas. And I don't know whether to congratulate him or call him dumb for, putting putting the rest of their career in jeopardy. But I think he did a lot of that because of it being Drew's last year.
That too. Yeah, that. And wanted to try to distract, obviously, the defense as much as possible. But, like you said earlier, the Cook fumble really changed the whole game. That's what he was running, and the momentum shifted, and that's when I really was concerned for my for my side on that one. Yeah. And that's how that went down. Green Bay ranks. This is interesting too, because the pass rush is what I was talking about getting to Brady. Green Bay only ranks 26th in quarterback pressure rate this year. They were better last year, 20.9%. Tampa Bay gets to the quarterback a lot better, and they rank a nice 3rd in pressure rate, 4th in sacks, right? So that's what I'm concerned about for the Packers. If they don't get to Brady might be able to throw the ball a little bit to all those just tons of targets out there, If Godwin can catch a freaking pass this week, maybe that's going to help him too, because he had his share of drops last week. I think that I took Green Bay at home at -3.5, and I was kind of thinking this has to go up, and it didn't go up much. I took it just for a value play, and kind of decide later. But I'm okay with this side, and it's just because I think Green Bay is going to have a lot more upside at home, and that Tampa's defense is not going to be nearly as buttoned up in Green Bay. And Drew Brees, hey, let's face it, his arms kind of went a little soft. It's not as good as it was, and Rodgers is still chucking the ball. But I do like Green Bay first half, and I like them -2.5. I think a lot of books have it juiced at 3. You get a +105 or something if you take the -3. But I like the minus. I'm going to wait till -2.5 and hopefully find that. I would pay up to -115 for it too. So I think that's just almost automatic because of the way LaFleur coaches his team and the surprises that they give. You also have to remember, I'm not that huge on revenge spots, but these Packers got their ass kicked against Tampa. They're going to probably come out firing this game, But what you said about props is what I'm looking at. So I want to run a couple by you. One prop play I thought of was Leonard Fournette over his receiving yards. Now, the funny thing about Fournette is a lot of people don't look at him as a pass-catching running back, but he caught a ton of passes his last year in Jacksonville. He was one of the top running back receivers out there, and that's why I'm thinking maybe I'll get some value with that. What are your thoughts on his either catches prop or his receiving yards prop there?
Yeah, I should say I'm awful at those. I should stay away from that sort of stuff. I'm super good at messing those up, and eventually I did a lot of that with Kamara early in the season, and I played like his receiving over when he had, when he rushed for like 130 and just wasn't getting any catches. So I need to talk to somebody about that, I guess. But I can see where you're coming from. I don't hate it. I just feel like whenever I'm on those, I'm wrong. So I've started deferring to just rushing plus receiving. But the receptions prop might be nice if you're going to take away. If there's a list of people you're going to try to take away in the receiving game, if I'm Green Bay's defense, he's lower on that list. In fact, he's probably near the bottom of that list. There's a lot of other guys I'd prefer not to beat me over the top or to be giving constant stuff to the sideline to AB if he's 100% healthy. So, yeah, I don't hate that.
Yeah, in Green Bay, they're pretty good against receivers and stuff like that. I just think he's going to get a little open in the flat there. So that's something I was looking at. My other one is Robert Tonyan. I think to score a TD, you might get some good value with it because he has 11 TDs this year, which is tied for second for the Packers with Aaron Jones. So I'm going to be looking a little bit at Tonyan because Rodgers connects with him very good this year, and I'm considering him over his yardage. So I don't like Tampa's linebackers in coverage either, Andy. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they played well against the run. We definitely saw the linebackers moving around, coming up, stopping some You said what Kamara had for yardage. I don't know how you can completely contain him, but I think their linebackers probably overperformed. People are talking about Pro Bowl snubs. I don't know about all that, but yeah, I like that just with the comfortability, the rapport he's built with Tanyan over the year. I guess he's liked tight ends in the past. I think he's found his guy again, and that might not be a bad look at like anytime touchdown score too, with a game lined at about 6 or 7 touchdowns here.
Oh yeah, for sure. So those are the two I was thinking. I don't know if you had any off the top of your head, but I'm looking at those for now.
Yeah, I haven't dug too deep into props yet. I think that's kind of where I'm going to end up at the end of the week here when I don't come up with much for sides.
All right, my man. Well, it sounds like you're pretty close to the number on the full game here. You don't disagree with the first half. So that's what I'll give out to our listeners. I'm going to do the first half for sure. The full game at -3.5 is gone. It's not like -4 is that much of a difference, but I think there's more upside with the Pack. I think I could see the Packers winning by margin more than I can see Tampa winning this game. Okay. So when I look at it like that, I just think that you're going to have more of a upside with Green Bay. I was pretty surprised it wasn't higher, and I think there's just a lot of people on Brady, but the Packers are definitely going to take this matchup seriously. Let's move into the next game then. Buffalo versus Kansas City. Kansas City is laying 3 points. The total on this thing is about 53.5, 54, and this thing's creeping closer to 2.5, Andy. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I guess I was always worried that this market might, you might see some insider knowledge on this and somebody knows something or is willing to stake enough money to on a guess or a hunch, or they think they have the insider knowledge. So obviously there's one really important piece that's going to come into play in the quarterback position. Every day you read more news on this, whether it was today you're hearing that you don't have to have a concussion to enter concussion protocol, which doesn't make sense, but I guess concussion-like symptoms without actually, saying he has a concussion can be something. So he's in protocol. He's the only piece that's going to move this line at this point. If if they say he's not playing, this is going to flip hard. I'm going to be feeling really bad. I have a very cheap 3. I played the 3 for Kansas City because I feel like the market is already tilted saying he will play by the fact that they're going to hang this 3. So I'm fine with it just because I do make this closer to 4. I have the total higher too, but I don't want to get extra exposure because it's the same thing. This total will go up if he's in. It'll go out. It'll go down if he's out. So essentially, if I bet this over, I'm just giving myself more exposure on the exact same piece of the fulcrum of everything is going to be Patrick Mahomes, and if he's in or out, essentially I could win or lose a whole bunch of closing line value on both the side and total. So while I do lean towards this over, I probably will be staying away from that because I have essentially the exact same exposure.
The correlated parlay, come on, man, 2.6.
Yeah, I know. I should just bet them both together.
Well, I think if you do like the Chiefs, you'd probably like the over. If you like the Bills, maybe it's a little closer, but I still could see the over hitting in this thing.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with your line grab because I think that Mahomes will play this game. I think it would take somebody, and I'm not saying this is a smart decision, but I think in this big of a game, someone would have to be half brain dead come Sunday to not play from a concussion or being in concussion protocol. And now they're saying it was a pinched nerve, which you wonder, pinched nerve sounds a lot better if the NFL is going to ease off restrictions. So there's your conspiracy theories already.
Yeah, that's not there's no CTE. You're not hearing about players. I had so many pinched nerves that I had CTE when I'm 60. It's, right. I get what you're saying. And I definitely have to agree with you there. If they're going to be, lenient behind the scenes and, they can preach safety all they want. They want Patrick, the league, the fans. I mean, every single person in the world who is not either playing for, cheering for, or betting on the Bills wants him to play, including the league offices. He's great for the product. So I would think they're lenient and hopefully he does play.
Yeah. The other side of this coin is Edwards-Helaire. So I'm saying this because of their last game that they played. And I know they are stacked at running backs, Williams, Le'Veon Bell, which doesn't look like Le'Veon Bell, but okay. Edwards-Helaire had over 160 rushing yards that first matchup. And that's another reason why I wonder if the under went down from 55.5 down to the 53, 54, whatever you see it at. But it was only 26, Kansas City 26-17 in Buffalo. This game was. Now, this was after Buffalo did get torched against the Titans. And I think they were probably down some defense that game too. I'm trying to remember the exact details. I can't. But, the Chiefs covered it pretty easily. Edwards-Helaire ran the ball the second half, got a ton of yards. My question is Edwards-Helaire going to be good enough to run? Because Damian Williams is different. He's going to step in, and you wonder if that changes anything. I don't know. But or Darren Williams, right? So, like you said, the speculation with Mahomes, I think Mahomes plays. I think that you're going to get some line value if you take the 3, even at minus 110. You're getting 3s at even plus 100 all over the board. Yeah. I saw minus 2.5. I think this would be a smart numbers grab for you to grab. But looking at the metrics, both teams are somewhat weak against the run. The Bills allow 4.7 rushing yards per attempt. Chiefs at 4.5. Chiefs run the ball better, though. 4.5 rushing yards to Bills 4.1. So that's a nice advantage for the Chiefs. That they should be able to run it against the Bills. But the Bills must have listened to me last week when I said to stack the box and stop Lamar Jackson. I like to think that I was that smart, and coaches would listen to my podcast, but no, they know more than me. But at the same time, they did what's right. The Bills stopped Lamar. They contained him. They made him use his arm. You saw some of those throws were bad. Could not believe how few points they held him to. But if they try to do that against the Chiefs, they are going to get freaking torched. You cannot cheat up against the Chiefs. Sorry. The best thing you can do is just try to go score to score with this team, which you actually kind of failed to that first matchup. But, both defenses are about equal, 233-ish yards per game they give up. Buffalo's slight advantage, 6.4 passing yards per attempt to Kansas City, 6.7. Bills' pressure rate's only 21%. The Chiefs are at 24%. So I think that's a little bit to look at. I don't think that Josh Allen cares that much. I think he's going to take off and run the ball if he gets pressured. So I'm not looking at getting to the quarterback as much as I am the previous game that we talked about with Green Bay versus Tampa. But one thing that Mahomes has is somehow Kelsey and Mahomes are in each other's minds. It's almost like Kelsey knows when he's kind of extending the play with his feet a little bit. It looks like he's going to run. Kelsey does that little hook, and the ball comes to him at that point. It's magic, man. I don't know how the hell to stop that thing, Andy.
No, and as far as like the Helaire thing, as much as running backs don't matter, it is a different style back. And last week the news was he should be back if the Chiefs advance, it looks like he should be available. I think obviously it doesn't hurt the offense. I'm not sure how much it actually makes a difference, but the way he plays and how he can play into the passing game as well, it's just one more extra piece for Buffalo to have to defend. And I have the defenses fairly similar too, which is to say not great. So again, I would lean to this over. I have the number higher, but with the exposure I have, I'm not super excited about adding to it. And maybe, a correlated parlay, I think that could be in the cards. You could play them both ways.
All right, man. Well, I know we're almost out of time. I actually like the over myself, and I do have the Chiefs via power ratings. 2.5 points better on neutral. So I think this should be at least 5-ish, this number. So I'm kind of with you on that. So we're on the same side there. I like the over because you're a lot of the times these teams are running the ball and not, they could be scoring more in the fourth quarter. I think people are missing out on some of those yards, and I think this is going to be a shootout. What I do want to ask you before we go, the Chiefs, a couple prop bets, right? I'm wondering if the Chiefs, whoever is going to be running the ball over his rushing yards is one, just because it happened last time, or maybe we should fade that. I'm curious to see your take on that. And then my other one was Josh Allen over his rushing yards, because last time he did have 8 rushes for 42 yards against the Chiefs on October 18th.
Yeah, and obviously number dependent. It'll be what they put out on Hilaire, and if he's back, then you might get numbers on both running backs, which will be something definitely to dig into. And biggest bit of advice for prop betting is have a lot of outs and shop around. You'll see prices 10 yards difference from one book to another. So don't just grab the first number you see if you like it, because you might find something quite a bit better. And then the Josh Allen stuff I'd agree with. That's such a dangerous part of his game. He's healthy. He's looking good right now. And I mean, you'll definitely see some designed runs. That's something that we've seen, whether it's Lamar or him or even Daniel Jones, like these designed runs that teams have been using. They're not scared to put a running back or put in quarterback and let him run the ball a little anymore. Those have been great. So I definitely see him getting a few of those and then a few scrambles. So even if you only get 5-6 carries, there's a decent chance he hits that.
All right, man. Well, great stuff. I'm going to toss the running back prop. I'm going to stick with the Josh Allen over his rushing yards prop. And Andy likes the Chiefs side. I like the over 53. Spells correlated parlay to you listeners out there. So, I don't give out parlays, but it sounds pretty logical to me, at least on this one. So, Andy, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. Love your knowledge and everything. You break things down so nicely. Where can our listeners find some of your great information?
Yeah, the Deep Dive Pod at Deep Dive Pod. Otherwise, I mean, man, it's on a podcast. Anywhere you find your podcasts. It's like they all say, Stitcher, iTunes, they list all of them. Other people are better at that than me, but anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you have some podcast app and you can't find it, hit us up. People have done that in the past, and we've made sure we're everywhere. Otherwise, I'm at Andy MSFW on Twitter, at Brown Bag Bets. That's my daily noontime show. I do short hits, 20-minute, just giving out a few plays and talking through some things for the day with my co-host Alex. That's also in podcast form every afternoon. Again, anywhere you find podcasts, and or on the BetSperts app. I'm just Andy, which is super easy. It's when you're an early adopter, you get an OG name like that.
All right, guys, make sure you check Andy out. He'll give you some great information and some more deep dives into your NFL wagering pleasure. All right, my friends, we usually like to cover sharp money, but the only thing sharp was whatever stomped the Packers and Bucks total down from 51.5 down to 50.5. 29% of the tickets are on the under, 59% of the money. The rest is pretty much even in this NFL Conference Championship week. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet us at The Odds Breakers. If you'd like to break down a game, tweet us at The Odds Breakers. A huge thanks to Andy Molitor for coming on the Deep Dive Podcast. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your week and go get some winners.